My name's Noel, and I want to talk about forgiveness. My sister had a child out of wedlock. She was going to school to be a registered nurse, so my father finished off the basement of the house as an apartment for her and for his granddaughter. Well, about 2 weeks before my father's death, she was at a pizzeria, and her ex, Joey, showed up there, said he wanted to talk to her. So they went out into her car and they were talking. Now, none of this I knew until after the fact. Evidently, he held her at knife point, making threats to her, that he wanted to get married to her and all this other stuff. And she told him, I'm not ready for marriage, I'm going to school, I want to be a nurse, I need to concentrate on that, we'll talk about it afterwards. So he let her go. She went home, called the police, took the report. The police sent off for a warrant for his arrest. The warrant came back the day before my father's death, but it wasn't signed by the judge, so they had to send it back. The next day, Joey broke into the house with a sawed-off .22 rifle and a foot-long kitchen knife. His goal was to kill my sister and his daughter. My father intervened, told her to go out the back door and to take care of herself. In the process, he was stabbed 8 to 12 times. The final one was through his heart. My mom tried helping my father, and she got hit in the back twice with a machete. I was at work that night, so when I got to the hospital, I had no idea what was going on. So I went to hug my mom, and she flinched, and that's when I found out she was attacked also. At that point, I started asking, why would God do this? Why would he let this happen? And my faith pretty much vanished, and I could care less about humanity. I started getting into drugs and alcohol, stopped going to church because I blamed God for what had happened. Many years went by. We all moved to Florida. I still had the same feeling. I got married, had my daughter, Crystal. That marriage fell apart because I couldn't forgive. I swore the day he got out of jail, I was going to go hunting. Years later, I met Terry. Terry invited me to come to church. So I started coming to church. And I slowly started regaining my faith in Jesus. At the time, I talked to Monroe, and I think I caught him completely off guard because I asked him straight out, why would God let this happen? And he told me it wasn't God's will, that was the devil's will. Well, that didn't resonate. That might have been clue number one that Jesus sent to say to forgive. I didn't see it. Then Pastor John became the pastor. I called him and said, hey, you want to meet for lunch? We met for lunch, and I showed him the article, and that was the first time I had pulled those articles out since my father's death. And he told me, you know, you can forgive the person, but not the crime. And in my head, I was thinking, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's crazy. Years went by. It was probably about 2-3 years later. I was sitting in church listening to one of his sermons. And even though Pastor John may want to say, hey, maybe what I said in the sermon is what helped him, but it wasn't, because my mind just drifted off into space. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was almost like Jesus slapped me in the back of the head and said, wake up, son. And it was forgiveness. I thought about that for probably about a month. Finally, I decided I need to forgive. I spoke with one of my sisters probably about 4 years, 5 years later. No, it might have been 6 years later. And we talked about it. And this is the sister I did not think would ever forgive. And she told me he was young, he was dumb, he did something stupid, and we paid for it. And that's when I realized I think she forgave him. So I need to forgive. I talked to Terry about it and told her I have forgiven him. Pastor John kept telling me, when I told Pastor John that I have forgiven him, he told me, you need to say this in church as a testimony on forgiveness. I was too scared, too nervous. Thought people would think I'm crazy for forgiving something like that. Forgiveness to me means being closer to Jesus. You're not saying what he did was okay. What he did was wrong. When I decided to forgive him, it helped me get closer to Jesus, is the way I felt. And I actually started praying that Jesus would get into his heart so that he can realize he did wrong and he needs to ask for forgiveness. The struggles before I had forgiven was I had no compassion. I cared less what happened. I cared less what I did. Like I said, if I hurt you, too bad. Oh well, move on. Now it's a different story. Now I'm totally different. I'm not that person. I have compassion for humanity, for people. I care about people. Back then I didn't care about people. And it was because didn't want to forgive. I got filled with hate, anger. And that's why I think today, and I look at a lot of kids, and they're like, well, I'm mad at my dad. I wish he'd go away, or my mom, or whatever. Don't ever wish that. You do not know what it's like not to have your mom. Because 5 years after my dad's death, my mom died. She wound up with 3 heart attacks and a stroke because she had to go through trial twice. Not having your parents there just to talk to them, ask for advice. And that's why I wish the young kids today could realize that. Your parents are everything. You need to have them around just for advice. I didn't have that. Think of your life and think about Jesus. If Jesus could forgive while he is hanging on that cross, why can't you forgive? If you want to be close to Jesus, you need to be able to forgive people. Whether it's they stole something from you, or something tragic like what happened to me, or just a petty argument you had with someone. You need to learn to forgive. If you do not forgive, it's going to fill your heart with anger and hatred. And you don't want that. You want to be filled with love. Love for people. I'm happy that he woke me up and said I can forgive because it's made my marriage stronger. The grandchildren, my relationship with them is stronger, with the children, just with friends. I've learned that, hey, you have friends out there. They believe in Jesus. My church family. Before that, I had no church family. I quit going to church. I gave up. It feels like I'm not hiding something. I guess is the best way to say it. Where it's known, yes, I forgave him. I feel like when I forgave him before, I hid it from people outside of Terry and the one sister. Now that I've done it publicly, I feel like there's nothing I'm hiding that I should feel ashamed of.